Welcome back to It's a Tool Thing. Today with a little tool talk, moving some tools around, and modified another tool. Actually, two tools technically. This is the quarter drive one that I converted to 3/8 here. Probably been a year ago maybe. I've been using it quite a bit in the shop. You've really got to be careful. It's got a lot of shaft flex, and I have stripped the gears out in it once already. It only was a couple months, I want to say, for its first failure. But it definitely fits into places that the regular 3/8 one will not fit. So it's found a place on the toolbox, that's for sure. So I decided to go ahead and make a new one. Just happened to be an orange handle also, but not by choice, just what I could find at the best price. But I just swapped this head out and gear set on this one. Like I said, it's got the front facing screws and now has the 3/8 anvil in it. I actually took it out of this one, took the head off of this one and switched it, because the screws in the rear, that's the way that head should be. Use this as an example. This is factory original. Should have the screws in the rear. They say it's a stronger design. It's definitely easier to replace if you strip a screw or a bolt out in particular. I'm not sure if that's really the case, because these things flex like crazy when you really start pulling on them. But I was considering maybe converting this one over to 3/8 drive for shop truck use. But I decided to go ahead and just leave it in quarter drive and leave it in the toolbox. Still has the original head and anvil in it. Because I still have this one for the shop truck. And this is an older one, obviously. But it's not as fine a tooth, but it's still got pretty good action on it. So I'm pretty happy with that. Planning on go ahead and just keep running this in the shop truck at this point. At some point I might do that switch and then move this one out there, but I don't have another one of these in the 72 tooth for the toolbox, and this one works just fine, to be honest. So this guy here, which is my old locking flex head, part number is F841. It's a USA made. It's going back into secondary line service. I don't really care for this one. It's one of the main reasons I don't like locking flex heads at this point, to be honest. They do have their advantages, but this one in particular, it does not like to stay locked. That actually stay locked, but most of the time, or stayed unlocked, I should say. But most of the time you can't get this thing to stay there as soon as you bump it at all. And that's the big downfall. This is one of the older ones where the button's down here where you can actually reach it with your thumb. The newer ones, the buttons, I think further up here, if I remember correctly. I don't have a newer one. This is not a dual 80. And that's really the other reason I just can't seem to use this thing, is the gearing in it. I should probably try to take it apart and clean it up. Maybe that would help. But this gearing in this one is super notchy. I mean, it's obviously not a fine tooth, but I've had this thing for, I don't even know, 15, 20 years probably. Probably should get rid of it, to be honest. I just don't use it enough. It is a good backup, but it's definitely not my first choice. I'd much rather have one of the dual 80 ratchets, and I wouldn't mind having a locking flex head, but they really need to make that thing where it'll stay unlocked, because that's the whole point. I mean, you want a flex head for that time when you're moving around and trying to avoid something, trying to get a little bit of flex. Obviously, the range of flex, I mean, these can go a long ways, but the odds that you're actually going to sit there, I guess you might wheel something like this in theory. But the odds that you're actually going to sit there and run something that way, I think it would be better served if they didn't necessarily made it a locking flex head, though I can understand the idea behind it, but maybe more like the torque wrenches. In fact, let me pull out my 1/2 inch torque wrench here real quick. Just take me 1 second. As a comparison. But I think they'd be more served by doing something like this, where they limit the amount of flex that you can have. And I think they do that on torque wrenches so that, because they have to accommodate the torque setting has to accommodate the angle change, I think, slightly. I'm not sure exactly how the math works out, but anytime you have a torque wrench, they limit the amount of angle. They don't go 90 degrees or something like that. I don't know what that is, probably 15 degrees or something like that. In fact, I'll grab my 3/8 one out just as a comparison. Or my other two 3/8 ones, why not? We'll go all out today. These are just the ones that I keep in the shop truck. I have a complete another set in the shop. I really like these beam style torque wrenches, but this 3/8 one's kind of fallen out of favor with me. With the coarser tooth, and I used to have one of these that for some reason I kept stripping the gears out, though the Snap-on guy would warranty it. But this has that same feature where they limit the amount of flex. And even this is an old click type that I use most of the time for 3/8 drive. Does the same thing. The head on this one's actually a little floppier. As you can see, this thing's pretty wore. She's a daily driver, that's for sure. But I think they would be better off doing something like that in flex heads. These they're all pretty tight currently. But I mean, having a ratchet that you can only get, that much would probably be, I think, reasonable. Now there would probably be that day where you couldn't get it to fit in there. But right now this thing, shaking the camera there a little bit, I've got it tightened up pretty well, but they tend to come loose this time. This is actually not even that bad considering it's an old one. But they tend to get floppy, and then you got to get in there and try to tighten them up. And I put Loctite inside of them to help kind of create a bind and let the Loctite dry. I didn't do that one, but I just did these, and I don't even know if it moves right at the minute, to be honest. It's almost like it's a fixed head. Because I just Loctited this one last night and tightened it up. But because you run that scenario where you're trying to set it onto a bolt, and it'll flop down or it'll flop up, and you want it to have that kind of rigid feel, but still give you flex when you need it. And I really think this would be the answer, to be honest. Obviously, it'd be great if it didn't move, if it wasn't floppy like this. But at least it limits the angle so that when you're working on something, you're trying to set it onto a bolt. Say this is your bolt right here on my finger. You can set it on there, and it'll kind of work its way on there. It won't flop completely over where you can't get the thing on. You could get it up into position and set it on your fastener. Be not a half bad design change for Snap-on. I don't know if they would do it though. So just a quick recap. Get these torque wrenches out of the way. This one here, which I moved into the shop truck, it's going to go into second line service. Probably just going to leave it in the shop truck. I don't know. At some point I probably should just get rid of it. This one here, going back into the toolbox. Going to go ahead and leave a quarter drive for now. I'm going to run this 3/8 with a quarter drive body in the shop truck, which is where it's currently been. This unit here is going into the shop truck. This has got the wrong head on it, so it has to be quarter drive. But that's going to go into the shop truck for my quarter drive stash. This unit here is going back into the toolbox as my flex head quarter drive. Long handle, extra long, I guess. This unit here will be going into the shop truck as a daily for 3/8 drive duty. As you can see here, it's pretty close to the same length. I want to say maybe If I can get that in frame. Maybe about an inch or so longer. So it's pretty comparable lengthwise. The shaft obviously being thinner is an issue. And then this one here is going back into service into the toolbox. And like I said, it's been getting more and more use again. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I wish it had maybe slightly bigger shaft on it or something, so it didn't quite have so much flex, but this smaller head really makes a difference when you're getting into tight places. Grab this one real quick too. When you're trying to get into a tight place, I mean, these are both 3/8 drive now, and that head difference is dramatic. I do wish they would have made the shaft a little beefier. But once you get it broke loose, or if you can get it broke loose, and you can get this in there and you can wheel something out. The thickness is marginally thinner. Well, that comes up, yeah. Marginally thinner. I mean, it's a fair bit thinner. Probably a 1/4 of an inch difference in length there. But it's that width. See if I can set this up somehow. I mean, that's a good 3/8, maybe 1/2 inch of material. And it teardrops faster too, so that makes a difference also. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Comment below. And as always, have a great day.